Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And I'm in studio with somebody that, when it comes to podcasting in Detroit, puts in so much work, but definitely a background with internet radio, background in hip hop. A lot of our story is very similar, but when I think about offering a stage and platform and microphone to so many different people, this man is it, even to the point of the creativity and expansion to the Pod Awards, traveling so many places, looking at studio setups, covering the business of getting this message out and really what having this storytelling platform and what podcasting can do. When you think of Detroit, you think of an anchor in it for so many voices, Podcastic. And when you think of Podcastic, none other than Miles Dixon. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good, brother. That was a great introduction. You know what? How much I got cash app you? That was a great introduction. I really appreciated that. I'm looking for the guy or the person
Hilarious.
that I'm talking about.
Hilarious.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, man. But it's real, man. You are such an entity when it comes to podcasting, and I think that it's so many different studios and where people talk in paths. Some people is like, yo, I used to be over here, I used to be over there, you got to get here, you got to get there. I've been hearing everything and so much of the work, and then just the consistency of being up Monday through Friday every morning with the show.
Yeah.
And you know, checking it in, tuning in, and seeing what people are saying. Man, the commitment is definitely seen, witnessed, realized, actualized. I tip my hat to that.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. A lot of people don't know what it takes. Hold on, let me put on my man voice. A lot of people don't know what it takes. A lot of people don't know what it takes to wake up every morning.
Yeah.
And going for it. Shout out to the people who run Eric Thomas situation.
Yeah.
It took them 9 years. 9 for their breakthrough. And most people don't know what determination and dedication is needed to do so. And I was listening to them, and it was like, they don't know, like, our first million came 9 years later. You know what I mean? But from 9 years later, they broke 7 to 8 people out to being multimillionaires.
I think that it's brick by brick. You got to love the process.
Yes.
Detroit is different. It's 10 years. And even with it, like when people say the subscribers, the this, the that, and the numbers,
Right.
I do have some episodes with some high numbers,
Right.
but the path is so different. And that's what I often tell people about this content creation. It's about what do you want from the path, because so much of the success usually is adjacent to something.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
So with that, let's start that story. The classic Detroit is different story. You and your people. How far back Detroit are you? Are you first generation, second generation? When did your people make their way to Detroit?
Well, my father was from Georgia, Macon, and my mother's from Philadelphia.
Okay, so Georgia is a place where a lot of folks come from.
Macon, Georgia, yes.
So yeah, I mean, we talk about that, especially that connection. And Philly is not a place where a lot of Detroiters come. What was the connection from your mom to get to Philly?
My mother and my father met, and my father said, I want to marry you, but you have to move to Detroit. Of course, I was being conceived at that time, and he literally drove a U-Haul down and moved all my mother's stuff, had her house ready and everything. And
wow,
that was it. I stayed on Tracy.
I was just about to ask what neighborhood.
Tracy, right off 6 Mile and Little Schaefer. Oh, okay. Puritan and Schaefer, yeah.
Okay, Puritan and Schaefer. So West Side for sure.
Definitely West Side. I'm definitely West Side. Most people think I'm from the East.
Okay.
But I'm definitely West Side.
All right, so that neighborhood, and what was it that led your father to come to Detroit?
My father, the Dixon family, my father and his brothers, they did some things to some white folks, and they had a pilgrimage. No, they had to come to Detroit. They had to flee,
and that's a story of many. Yeah. That's definitely you gotta get up north or to another place.
Yeah.
So was it already family here in Detroit, or was it just, hey, let's go there?
I think it was already some family here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But not a strong batch. However, my father was like there my father and my uncle Buddy, they was like their gods. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
So they were can pretty much the patriarchs and the leaders of the family.
That's the word I was looking for.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from there, I'm guessing send it for more family, and now y'all got some family in the D.
Yeah.
What did your dad do?
He he did he did a lot of things. He also was a musician.
Okay.
He also worked with like Miles Davis. My mother
Mm.
had a good friendship with Teddy Pendergrass,
Wow.
Chuck Berry. So they yeah. And Willie Dixon is my cousin.
Okay. All right. Now, when you talk about Teddy P and your mom being from Philly,
Yeah.
I assume that connection was
It was-
that one of those connections before she got here?
Yeah, they was best friends. They grew up together. It was kind of
Mm.
dope. He was supposed to be my godfather actually,
Wow.
but my mother never came back to Philly really.
Okay.
So, but when she heard I was about to be born, she said he was gonna be it was told to me he was gonna be my godfather, and I used to always mimic him on his record. So,
Mm.
but we only met like twice.
Okay.
But in the process, I met him the second time. I met Patti LaBelle with him.
Hmm.
And then that's how me and Patti LaBelle, I was in love with that woman. Loved her.
So this connection, your mom was connected to Philly sound. What did your mom do in Philly?
She was a hustler.
Mm.
She shot dice, played cards. Honestly, that's what she did.
Okay.
But when she came here, she wound up working in Henry Ford Hospital as a
Okay.
dietitian, aka supervisor at the cafeteria.
Okay.
But she was dope. My mother was she's dope. She taught me a lot about how to handle myself in the streets, like what to watch out for. You know what I mean? Not to be a sucker.
Mm-hmm. And for people that know that have traveled to Philly, Philly definitely got an edge to it. You know, Philly definitely got an edge.
I just left Philly last week.
And also, as speaking of that edge and Teddy Pendergrass, it's said, you know, if you watch the documentary and even before, if you talk to enough old heads, that some of the management for Teddy Pendergrass was like very street adjacent. Yeah. I've been one to speak that the music industry and street agency have been kind of hand in hand since the beginning, and I'm talking about like even with gospel acts, like it's
wherever there's talent, it's money, and wherever there's money involved, street is adjacent to it. It's right there.
So in this same journey, you talk about that neighborhood. Did you stay there most of your life, or did you all move?
No, we stayed in Detroit.
Okay, no, the Schaefer Puritan.
Oh no, Schaefer and Puritan. We moved off of Schaefer and Puritan by the time I was 5 years old. Before I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. So when I was 4 years old, yeah, I moved on Washburn and Puritan.
Okay.
Because my father and my mother got into it, and then my mother wound up getting married to a man named Jesse McFarland. Shout out to the McFarlands. They was a dope group of people, and Jesse was dope as hell too.
Okay.
So yeah, he took good care of me. He always looked out for me. My mother she wound up slipped up and made a bad decision on one male in her life who wound up beating her. You know what I mean? Domestic violence, and after that, she just like, this ain't gonna happen again.
No bets. I'm out.
All bets off.
Yeah.
And so I've been. It was just me and my mother for a long time till she caught brain cancer and passed away in '89.
Condolences.
No problem. And the one thing about that, if she wouldn't have passed away, I would never become the person who I am.
So now let's explore a little bit about that, you know, where you all move and still kind of staying in that neighborhood in the 80s. For people that know, like, Detroit doesn't have a serious, like, from the 80s and 90s gang culture as much as it's like neighborhoods. And Puritan, definitely the PAs are Puritan Avenue, especially when it runs like adjacent to the FAs of the Finkel Avenue.
Actually, they was good friends. The FAs and the PAs that I knew, they were good friends, except as long as you get edgier, you start getting edgier when you're going across Illinois.
Yeah.
It was a different division of PAs. Same thing with the FAs, it was different divisions of them. And I don't know if because of the economic structure, I don't know if it was a red line off of Illinois, but it just became different because then the people from Illinois and Puritan was more like Highland Parkers.
Yeah.
Most of us. So it was just a big difference. And and attitudes, like the difference between the person on the east side from John R. to Van Dyke. You know what I mean? Van Dyke and abroad. It's a difference between those two different east siders. It's crazy.
And it's interesting you uplift this, and that's the cool thing about Detroit is different, because some of it does deal a little bit with redlining, meaning that some of these communities were predominantly Jewish longer than others.
Right. Yeah.
So neighborhoods at the time, but meaning like if black folks started moving in the 40s,
Yeah.
a neighborhood looks different than if black folks started moving in the late 60s.
Gotcha.
Versus if black folks started moving in the early 70s.
Gotcha.
Like, it frames the way that a neighborhood looks because of the resources that are there, the stores are there, the way that the vibes of it, like the neighborhood looks different. So one of those communities you speak of, especially like when we think about like Livernois and how that connection goes, that's one of those communities, definitely depending upon the side of Livernois you on.
Yeah.
That was a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, much longer than the other side of the tracks.
Yeah, I believe so. I can see that too, and I can see in how the homes was decimated in different areas.
And as we speak of this, shout out to Adet O, not a handout, that video essay I did on the history of Detroiters' roles in the reparations movement, and Reparations Ray Jenkins that worked in real estate up to that time and was one of those black realtors that specifically was really specialized in as communities were transitioning from predominantly Jewish communities to black communities and those different blocks and how they will open up. So along that journey, let's go school. Where you go to high school?
Mumford. It's only one high school on the west side. No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
I went to Mumford High. Definitely, I'm a Mustang.
Okay.
89.
Okay. All right. Mustang at 89. So you graduate the year your mom passes.
That's how I found out she had brain cancer. She was actually vomiting in the tub, thinking it was the toilet. It was June. It was the day of my graduation, June 15th, 89. I mean it's crazy. It was crazy. That's what a lot of my strength derived from. My mother died on November 14th, and my birthday was November 17th.
Wow.
Feel me?
And just this, and then when we think about like that transition from what do you do after high school to graduation, and now you play a role in a caretaking capacity, just trying to figure this out, or what's happening?
I tried to take care of my mother the first month. After that, I was on this side of Illinois with my producer named Jewel, who had a studio in Pasadena, 2930 Pasadena. It's a very historical house for everybody. And his mother wound up becoming my mother's caregiver.
Wow.
Yeah. So because of my relationship with him, and plus I just had to sign a recording contract illegally because of course my mother did not sign it. Actually, at the age I signed it October 16th of 89. You feel me? In October 19th, my mother went into a coma.
So we're speaking around this. And the other piece is I want to get some things about the culture of Mumford.
No problem.
But before we even go there, as shout out to Merciless Amir, as I interviewed him not too long ago.
Okay.
You and Doc Chill, if people don't know.
Yeah.
AKA Doc Chill.
AKA Doc Chill. That's
a pioneer in hip hop for Detroit. And big into that story.
Most definitely.
So how do you start connecting with hip hop at the time here in the city?
I've been connected to hip hop here since 1985.
Okay.
85. I had the first. I was the first rapper with a band. You know what I mean? It was called Doc Chill and the Chill Express, and it was dope. It was like we was the people like. So where's your tape? I'm like, tape? We don't have no tape, man. We got drums and piano and saxophone, bass player.
So 84. This is like. This is definitely around the time like when myself and Sterling Toll, shout out Sterling, we did a series on like the history of like a lot of Detroit hip hop, talking about Ben and Jarvis and a lot of the
Ben and Jarvis,
a lot of that arc and some of those first MCs. Definitely, we love DJ Los.
That's my guy.
And you are in the mix of this as really hip hop in Detroit and Detroit's starting to get its own flavor into what hip hop is.
Yeah, definitely. When it came down to it, by the time I was 17 years old, I had my name in Billboard magazine in the top 100. I wrote a song called Yo Baby, Yo Baby, Yo that was performed by Nicki Nick. I wrote that. And Jewel had partnered with RJ Rice. And honestly, at the time, you say Detroit is different, right? It's really different. RJ didn't believe in Detroit rappers.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that ain't breaking news, but he didn't believe in Detroit rappers.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, I don't know, if we want to do this. Everybody he wanted from New York. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He met me. He was like, oh, that kid, he kind of all right. You know what I mean? And there was another guy, my guy DJ OC had. Damn, what's his name? But it'll come to me later. He finally gave him a chance,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked out. So he after that he started looking at Detroit artists as okay, they gotta do something. They could do something. And RJ from that point on, RJ used to have me around a lot because I knew how to mix. I was probably the youngest person that knew how to work with SSLs. I don't even know why. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. I mean, it's real. It's real. Miles is a man that sometimes that happens. And when he talks about an SSL, shout out to my time at the Recording Institute of Detroit. That's one of the premier consoles to record music in a reel-to-reel tape deck. So like if you go back to I think if you look at the 40 documentary is fresh in my mind from Thriller on that was made with Michael Jackson, and you look at any of those soundboards, they're all SSL recordings.
It's just a big board,
and they're like huge. What we're doing now in computers and with some of these like takeaway devices.
Right.
Years ago, like it would be consoles the size of this room.
Yeah, it's a master
to execute that
masterful circuitry.
Yes.
Like Michael Grace was the first one who I helped. He put his board together at Sound Suite Studio. So that's when Nita Baker recorded at Bob Seger, Stevie Wonder, Angela Winbush, David Peaston, The Temptations, you name it, they came through there. And I wound up engineering a lot of those sessions, and I was only like 14, 15 years old.
So you also talk about RJ.
Yeah.
And you speaking of, as we know in Detroit, Latest Arrival.
Yes,
and,
RJ Latest Arrival.
With Shackles on My Feet is, I think, the hit that I love. If I'm usually playing music, you're going to get Shackles on My Feet. And shout out to Butch. It's Butch Small. That's one of my OGs. But that whole feel of being, I didn't realize even that was running concurrent with hip hop, and they were even thinking about it. And a lot of people know his son, young RJ, that's deep into hip hop.
I remember RJ when he was in DD's stomach. I put like this. When we think about it, his name was Kassan. Kassan was on Shackles on My Feet Part 2.
Wow,
that's who was the artist. His name was Kassan. And even then, hip hop here, Detroit is different. So we were still separated. You know what I mean? We went from street to quote unquote hip hop. You know what I mean? To the beboppers, and then at one point in time, they didn't even consider me as a rapper in hip hop.
That's interesting.
They didn't consider me when I did. I'm Freaky by Exchange. They didn't even look at me as a rapper.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen after the 50th anniversary of hip hop, what was going on the internet.
It was. I'm on that 300 list. It was a list and of 300 different acts that were impactful to Detroit hip hop. I believe. Look, first off, I tip my hat for making that list and so many different MCs there. But I do think that my work here impact my stance there. Even though I love my music and everything, but like you gotta dig in some crates to find some of my songs and everything.
What was your group?
It was just General Population was my band.
Okay.
But Kari Way Frazier.
Okay.
And some different projects.
What's the name?
Kari Way. So WAE. So if a lot of people look up WAE,
that's your rap name.
That's me.
Okay, that's what's up.
Yeah. So
I seen that name.
There we go.
We never got to meet then.
But yeah, and I'm glad that I was able to I checked off a lot of the boxes on the list of the music thing, and I'm gonna do some more music with Sterling and everything. The number one reason, and I guess we can get into that discussion a little bit too, because people always ask why you don't do. As a performer and creating it, I still love it. It's still my favorite art form.
Like me,
but to release it it's like I'm on stage performing it. You're like the last person in the scenario of the equation out of everything else.
Yeah.
And I used to say to get paid, which that's too, but it's like producer, promoter, agent, manager, event manager. Like it's so many other variables in the equation
8
where
to 10
almost like
people.
to just put, like you can almost pick any rapper and put them in there in the formula and success. Whereas I used to look at it like it was opposite.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily disparaging anybody from a career in it, but so many of the so much of the other assets in the team are needed.
Yeah.
And I guess since I'm here, I'll get more explicit. I had the opportunity, and you probably remember him. It was a rapper, Ricochet, that had a hit that was
I know
like
Ricochet.
that was released with Universal Music Group, and that they were looking for other rappers at the time. So in comes Astray. It was this hell of a white kid out of like the west side of the state, and he's done some stuff with Shady before. And I forget the other artist that was in there, and then it was me. Everybody else had like teams.
Yeah.
They were ready to execute. It was just me, and they were like, "Okay, if you can get here, we can do a print. We can do a 50-50 print deal and get you a 12-inch, get you some radio plays." And it's like, I didn't even have necessarily like all the assets in the team for the tool. But when I got to that point, I was like, okay, this is beautiful that I at least got to this point. But to go further, it's going to take a lot more people in the mix of this. Yeah. And as I looked at that, I was like, okay, I can do a little bit of this. I can do a little bit of that. Then I'm looking, and it's like, okay, I'm becoming a lot of the rest of the pieces in this equation, and I'm liking some of this other stuff even more so than the performing, and that's one of the key primary reasons.
Okay, that's dope. But I didn't know you was an artist. That's dope. But by seeing your name before, I definitely seen your name.
Yeah, and that's where like when it starts making sense. Like I talk with my hands, my voice, and it's all. This is hip hop energy. And if you know, even if I'm giving a keynote address or I'm speaking in my business class, it's like it's a hip hop edge.
No, I get it.
To how I communicate.
Everything you do, that's what's up. But again, I'm proud of you. At least you're going forward in your dream and your vision. Most people don't even have the heart or the discipline to go towards their vision. So that's dope. I congratulate you.
Thank you. And you're one of those people that was really putting the seed in the ground and then able to take that and be still connected to music. And not just look at it like tunnel vision of, if I'm not on stage rapping, I don't want to do it.
Well, I used to always make it my business to make sure I made a vow to myself that I would never be left out of anything. In '89, Madonna came to Detroit to do a world peace tour, and she was like the biggest artist to perform at the Palace.
That was the Like a Prayer tour almost, like that song and that album.
Yeah, and so what happened was she heard my record on the radio and called 107.5. Her father called him like, "Hey," and I'm gonna tell you how it all come back around. Call like, we want that record you just played. So they wind up calling us. Marvelous Marv called Jewel, and they wanted to have me open up for Madonna. And at the time, Palace had a no rapper
policy.
Yeah, no rappers. And then Madonna said, "Oh, he can open up for me." Right, and then whatever happened, it wound up not happening. Right, Madonna father called. So years later, not even I'm gonna say it's not that long.
So like 89 to 91, nothing crazy.
92,
okay,
to 92, Madonna father called me again. But he called me direct. He don't even know it's me. It's for Exchange. So he wanted the group Exchange on Maverick Records along with something going on. What's the name of that group? UNV. But he was getting us because we refused to sign with Universal with the group Shy. It was Shy, and it was supposed to be Shy Exchange and somebody else. They was sign us and put us on tour immediately together. But instead, Maverick he got the whip from there. So Maverick called, and Mason and them was already have something going on with Maverick, and they thought it was going to do a whole big bash of Detroit artists sign because Madonna's from Detroit, blah, blah, split. And they was going to do a whole Detroit campaign. Well, we didn't sign to them. We wound up signing with Warner Brothers. So with that being said, it was just crazy how just little 3 years later, I wound up talking to him direct. You know what I mean? And it was a difference. I even had a relationship with him, communication for a while, for at least 6 or 7 years, just to talk to him because he was a wise dude.
And for people that don't know, as you say, Madonna is based in the Metro Detroit area.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of her flavor and some of the culture that inspires her is definitely that part of New York at a scene with Basquiat and Andy Warhol and a lot of that. But she's from Detroit.
Yes.
And Maverick Records, as you speak of it, is one of those record labels that was looking to get a lot of breaking acts. And when you talk about 89, I say the Like a Prayer tour, I mean, that was Madonna Vogue. That was Madonna's like shift in a pivot of who she was as an artist. And I mean, Madonna, Michael Jackson, and Prince was that was music industry.
And I used to work for Prince too. So far as on this promotional team.
So now let's just get. I want to rewind back to Mumford itself. What was Mumford like for you? What was the culture there in '89? What do you remember about it? What was the feel?
It was dope as hell. The biggest thing I used to remember, I had to some days run away from school because I was from Puritan. You know what I mean? And I wasn't a PA, and I wasn't a part of the street culture of PA.
Yeah.
I stayed on Washburn, Wyoming, really. You know what I mean? Washburn, Wyoming, Puritan.
Yeah.
So I had to bust through the woodshop class and run at least a block and a half to make it to 6 Mile. Once I made it to 6 Mile, I was good.
You was cool.
I was good. Because it was crazy. A lot of the PAs, well, not a lot, some of the PAs, some of the 6 Mile LAs was from Puritan at first. And their family wound up moving on 6 Mile.
Yeah.
So they wound up becoming 6 Miles. I mean, LAs. So it was kind of crazy. So I had to run like 2 blocks. But other than that, the culture of Mumford was dope. We had a lot of great people. And then when the Beverly Hills Cop thing hit, we became infamously famous as far as a high school in the country. Thanks to the guy, I forgot his name, Brackner.
Jerry Bruckheimer. As like this kind of is that same influence. A lot of these black communities at one point in time were very heavily Jewish communities.
Yes.
And Mumford's definitely one of those communities near the end that has that connection. Yeah. So Jerry Bruckheimer, the producer of Beverly Hills Cop, is that, and even the connection to Bob Seger's song being in the soundtrack, and we definitely have.
I recorded that record. That's crazy.
Wow.
I recorded that record. Wow. And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff like happened. I didn't even know. I didn't realize it until one day I was like, I recorded that. You know what I mean?
Wow. So we definitely got to talk about some of that studio experience. But so Mumford, you love.
Yeah, because also shout out to Jack Frost. Jack Frost is the only rapper I ever lost against.
And another classic pioneer when we think of Detroit hip hop, and even to this day, Jack Frost. Like sometimes people think that like because the MC's not in their 20s, it's gonna sound trash. Jack Frost is cutting even to this day.
We still some of the coldest people out here. I'm not gonna lie. Jack Frost at the high school talent show. He was the first person to ever beat me ever out in any contest.
Wow.
Yeah, I have never lost a contest until that day. And then when I lost that day, it made me understand I have to work harder.
Yeah.
And I have to pay attention to what's going on. I was always one of those people, I didn't believe in sampling back then. But when Jack came out, this is the house that Jack built, man, and that bass drop, man, our auditorium was off the hook.
Another one of those classic records in Detroit hip hop. For sure, foundational. It makes me think of Billy T and 96.3, just like the whole concept of it. And in this, like in this start, because you're like in two spaces, and you said record deal early. How you're navigating like definitely in the world of rap, but also you are connecting to studios, and you said you're learning a lot of this. What gave you access? And for people that don't know, like nowadays you almost can pick up your phone and record a whole album. But back then you really needed access to a studio and needed to be trusted to get him.
Most definitely.
Get access to that studio. What was it? What was it about your talent to really learn mixing and sound, where it kept providing you access to different studios at such a young age?
I'm a great listener. And I'm a great observer.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that I see, I could do. One of my mentors said I was an idiot savant, and I took offense to it till I looked it up. I was like, "Oh, I might be," you know what I mean? So, but my first person who actually gave me opportunity was Maurice Compton.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was going through the yellow pages and looking for studios near me, and then his studio was right on the Lodge Freeway.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed up because I have the same voice I have now. I probably had when I was 12.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So he was like, "Well, come on and see me." And so I went over there. He seen me. I'm a little kid.
Yeah.
I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Man, how old are you?" And I told him. He said, "Where's your parents?" He said, "I got to meet your parents." So he literally just drove me around the corner, basically, took me to meet my mom, and he was a very professional dude. And from that point on, I learned how to engineer. And he didn't show me A, B, and C. He just gave me A, D, G. Everything else I had to learn. He's like, you have to be a thinker. An engineer, you have to be a thinker because anything could go wrong. And you have to think from what could possibly go from the beginning to the end. Because a lot of times it ain't the beginning or the end part. It's something in the middle that's missing. Like you might got some adapter somewhere.
Yeah.
You know.
And also with the SSL boards and like the reel to reels, I remember because I graduated from the Recording Institute of Detroit.
Right.
Like with I was like the last graduating class that was working with that didn't go all computer.
Right.
So with that,
but this wasn't even the SSL board.
I was gonna say, but just still tape, reel,
yeah.
running hardware equipment,
Yeah.
as they call it. That's what it versus software equipment.
Facts.
It's other like effects processors. It is amplifiers.
Yeah.
It's patching things up. Like you have to have a better understanding. But the other heart of a lot of studio sessions and being a good engineer is likability. An artist gotta like working with you.
Most
and an
definitely.
artist gotta feel that vibe of like, I can perform well. So for some artists, and you know artists, I mean, some artists want to come in and like make it a party. God knows what substances they have.
Right.
Some artists want to like almost like chill out, nothing else, and I'm just mellow.
Right.
Sometimes the same artist wants different vibes, but you're picking an engineer because I believe engineers play so much of a role in the delivery of how a song is because that's who the vibe
is going. Definitely, it's controlling. When you're the engineer, you're controlling the vibe. But I'm gonna make sure everybody understand. And it sounds sweet. I was never the main engineer,
but I still want to talk about being in studios.
Oh my God!
As far as because
studio rat.
To be a main engineer, like let's think of Dr. Dre.
Yes,
Dr. Dre is staying in session eye to eye with Snoop.
Yeah,
but somebody else has to patch something.
Definitely,
and that person is in there, and then it's still a trust of who that person is. I'm guessing you are patching, you're running, you're making sure everything runs. You're at the end dumping things to tape. You're adding layers to things. You're adding effects. As so much of what Butch, shout out to Butch, has uplifted. Butch Small worked with everybody. It seems like it talks about a lot of those funkadelic sessions. They will record all day, but at night when the engineers come back, that's when it's like, okay, now we can get special touches.
Patchwork.
And that patchwork is, I'm guessing, a lot of what you were working on.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, I was really dangling the sound recording going up to the 2-inch reel. Patching, shout out to Scott. I forgot Scott's last name, but White Boy Scott was dope. And he was like, man, I learned so much from you just watching you do your thing. But I learned so much from Scott too. Scott was really dope, and Scott was probably he's probably one of the first. He was probably the youngest white boy over there at Sound Suite. And he did his thing, and he was a person you don't mind him talking however he talked.
And now, as we talk about the street agency and stuff, I do gotta ask you this because you're talking about also working with the great Mike Powell. And Mike Powell, one hell of a producer, hell of an imprint on Detroit music. When I think of even the music made, like, so Anita Baker's career, which is so Detroit.
Mm.
But it starts with chapter 8.
Yep.
And chapter 8 is
Another Mike Powell group.
Mike Powell's group,
Mhm.
given access to opportunity. And now the story is so out here, as we talk about street agency, of the money that was invested in the first project from Freeway Ricky Ross.
Yeah, and I never knew that. But when I first seen him, when he got released from jail, I'm like, I seen him somewhere before, and I never knew what. And I said, that's where.
And it created this space where the music, Dick Griffey, and like a sense of like, get what you need to create great music.
Yes.
And that's what the studio was there.
Yeah, most definitely. South Street was one of the best studios I've ever been in. Shout out to Greg Riley over at the disc. Greg was the first person who offered me a job, though.
Mm.
He was like, shout out to rest in peace to Tom Gilardi. Greg Riley had said, Miles, I want you to come work here.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. He said, but it's only one problem. You don't go to school. And everybody who work at the disc has to go to school here.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, okay. I said, well, you know I'm not going to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, but you still need to come around and get some courses. I forgot the guy who was actually running the
Bob Dennis.
Course.
Shout out to Bob.
Yeah, he's still living.
I don't know. That's good. Dan Dennis was like one of my instructors. I used to get that guy headaches like ever. If the whole, what is it? The digital pad does not prevent input overload.
Right. Damn.
So basically, it's like if you play something real loud,
right.
it was like a button that could like turn it down a little bit.
Right.
I used to give Dan so many headaches. Shout out Dan.
So he had offered me a job. He said, don't worry about paying for the school. You just take some classes and then you work during the day.
Yep.
I said, okay. I said, but I got one problem. I'm going to wait to get over here.
Mm-hmm.
See, he was really just trying to take me from Jewel.
Yeah.
And he was like, because at this time, I'm probably the only, not too much, just tell the truth. I'm probably the only producer, artist, you feel me, that can engineer.
Yeah.
So working with rappers, he knows I came in one time. George Clinton had was upstairs and Butch wasn't there. Butch was out of town.
Yeah.
But I think he had Paul Allen with him. And I was communicating with George with the rappers. George liked the way I communicated with the rappers that was on the track.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, just follow my flow. How I move my hands, it's gonna be like, I'm gonna orchestrate how you want you to flow. And George looking at me like, yeah. What he said, yeah, right. And so Greg loved the way I managed that time period. And so Greg offered me a job, and I was like, he was even like, look, they sell cars next door every day, all day. And I was like, he's like, I'll buy you a car. I just need for you to get here.
Yeah.
I was like, and I just gracefully declined.
So, for people that know where you coming from, like I say, it's an intimate relationship between engineer and artist, and definitely being that you're one of the originals to rap with a band, it's a different pocket of where we're used to with the synchronization, meaning like we're so used to drum programming.
Right.
As a rapper, a lot of our beat is so in our head, but a band flow is a little bit different to find the pocket of where you can still be cool and like put a couple extra bars here, a couple put less words here, like to play around with it. Yeah. So hence that engineer knowing the flow. And as you speak to that, this is why it was so essential for some of those first rappers and why so many original rappers were also the engineers and the producers, because it was an art form that just started out of nowhere. It's not like soul or R&B. And I'm not saying that the modern day R&B producer isn't approaching it differently, but it's still certain structures that are the same, whereas rap was so unprecedented in the 80s and 90s.
I'm glad you said it, because the truth is most people don't know R&B singer like Anita Baker, you just be hearing this while she's singing. Right? So she's singing to clicks.
Yeah.
Just staying on beat, right? But not the rhythm. So she's singing, and then once the artists or the musicians come in. I got to think. I'm sorry, I'm kind of slow down.
Yeah.
Musicians come in, they hearing it, and they getting the feel of it. Next thing you know,
Mhm.
it's spreading and spreading. And it become this big thing. Then they come in, re-record the vocals.
Yep.
You feel me? So it's but you absolutely hit the nail on the head when it comes to hip hop or rappers. We got this thing to where our voice is a main instrument in it.
Exactly.
So
So like you may sit through a rap session. Like I remember the first time I'm in New York at Quad Studios, and I'm sounding like I'm there all the time. I only recorded there like 2-3 times, but in the studio next to us was Raekwon,
right,
and he's like stacking and layering in a different way.
yeah,
But like for a rapper, it's to go into the studio session with like a traditional, I guess like soul or even classical or whatever producer, you're gonna always clash because they're gonna have you trying to do this. Whereas it's like, look, I'm about to do my overdubs and I'm about to do my action verse and I'm about to do that. So you'll hear for like 10 seconds, like, yeah, word, huh,
right,
right? He knows where it's going because he knows where everything else is going in the beat.
right.
And it's like I'm laying the action and everything else, and then I'm gonna lay and stack words over words. So every third word I'm gonna say, then every fourth word I'm gonna say, and then we're gonna put it together as an engineer.
Yeah.
Rap engineers is like, oh, I see what you're doing.
Right, right.
I got you.
I got you.
But another engineer is thinking
They're
like,
like,
what
the hell is
in
this?
the hell is he doing?
Yeah. That's crazy.
You know? So in this, staying in studios,
Mhm.
and still performing yourself, how are you balancing also like that mix where you like, okay, music is what I do and all I'm about? Or was it just one of those things where it's like, okay, these studio opportunities are cool. How did you balance how much you wanted to be on stage versus working in studio as an engineer?
Well, when the first time I got on stage and I seen all these people just came here for us,
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like even I was like, I don't even really want to do no music no more. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to focus on performing.
Mm.
At a particular time, there was no one. There was very few. Let me quit being like that. There was very few people that could outperform me.
Mm-hmm.
Trick was one of the only people who I would even consider that could even compete with me on performance because I always had the best dancers. I could dance myself, and the way I think I'm a creative, so it's just hard to beat me on stage. You know, it was a time we did a show with Billy T, Detroit Love concert. It had Al Nuke, Bombshell, aka Corey Blake,
Mm.
G Side, and a few other people. Was Proof T Stucky was on the guitar, and I remember Proof was telling them they don't think I'm paying attention. They're like, let Doc Chill go ahead with that old booty shaking stuff first.
Mm.
Proof said, you don't want him to go first. You do not want him to go before y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, yeah. But we the ones that, you know, got the hit record right now, blah, 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 blah. And Proof was like, and I was like, oh, I heard him. I am. And then when I got off stage, Billy T said, he just cussed like, I don't know what your show, you know, but he just cussed like, I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like,
You can speak freely.
he was like, God damn, Doc Jill, what did you do?
Mm.
And I came whenever I hit the stage. I just tell people, you do not want me to perform before you,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm gonna bring it, and I brought it, and somebody, I'm like, yeah, I said, I knew didn't even want to perform after that.
Wow.
He didn't. He was like, man, you tripping. I was like, I had explosions on the stage and everything.
Wow.
They was just like, because I was bringing it it was at the Majestic Theater.
Wow.
And I knew what I was up against, and they was talking crap during our mic check.
Mm.
So I was like, I'm going to give it to him. And I gave it to him. So
That's real.
I gave it
That's
to him.
real. So having this performance, and you talked about like definitely, I guess like rap is in different arcs, as you say, booty music.
Mhm.
Like so, like bass. I guess what we would think of Miami bass,
Yeah.
but Detroit had its own feel of bass music too. And you talk about Trick, heavy in it. Shout out to Uncle Tricky, with Goon Squad originally.
Yeah.
So like everywhere we go, we deep.
Deep.
Shake better make that booty bounce.
Yeah.
Like
They gotta make that bounce.
we've been familiar with this, and that's what also, like I say, made Proof so interesting, because it's like Proof is like, when I tell people it's like, talk about Detroit is different. It'd be like somebody being in 2 Live Crew and somebody being in Tribe Called Quest.
Yes.
At the same time, and also somebody being a battle rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like he was
always in the mix.
Yeah, like anything hip hop. So
I remember when Proof, I think Proof was like 2 to 3 years younger than me. So Lawrence X at the time had a cable show on Barton Cablevision.
Yes.
On the Least Access channel, but it was the bomb for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we used to walk up there all the time. So I remember Proof, hey, Dr. You gonna take me up there with you? I was like, man, I don't know. You can come and roll with us, you know what I mean? And then he wound up getting on. That show. But Proof was always intrigued by people who he looked at to as being a person of this knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
Proof was a very coachable person.
Mm-hmm.
So Proof was my guy for a very, very, very long time. And then me and of course T Stucky from Puritan, and they were cousins.
Yeah.
And so we got tight even after in '91. I remember Proof and T Stucky came to get me to work on some things. And so I was with them for a long time. That's what made me be in the Detroit Love Show. Because again, people wasn't thinking I was ready.
So now let's, I guess, get into the arc of, man, I could just stay in this hip hop bag for so long because your story is deep. Podcasting.
Yes.
And podcastic.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm just jumping the gun.
Don't worry about it. I'm with it.
But let's get to that. How do you get into this world of content creation? And I know it starts with that wave in internet radio, but how do you connect?
I got into podcasting actually during the pandemic. They were saying on the news that the word podcast is probably the most searched word ever. You know what I mean? Since the internet even been about.
Wow, that's interesting.
During this time.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I had WGOD, it was all hip hop gospel network. Only play hip hop gospel stuff. Some people have their shows that they play other things on, and just faith-based communications. And from that, as I'm hearing that, I told my girl, look there, I said, I'm about to change WGOD. I'm tired of being in the studios. And I started looking up what podcasting is, and I'm like, okay, I'm tired of being in the studio for people paying me $300, $400 a month to be in the studio 2.5 to 3 hours every time.
Mm-hmm.
Cut that time in half or less, you know what I mean, for the same amount of money. So I said, I'm going to turn it to a podcast, and I said, okay, I'm going to call it Podcastic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Which is actually a cool last name.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But shout out to, what's the old boy name who do the Black University? Dang. Bald head glasses. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He came and found me at the conference. I was looking for him. He's like, man, I'm looking for you. He said, because a name like Podcastic and the setup you got at this event. I was like, he said, I'm very Dr. Boyce Watkins.
Okay.
Dr. Boyce Watkins. He was like, I said, man, I never seen nothing like this. I've been in communications for a while. I had my table set up at this conference, and I was able to go live.
Yeah.
He said, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and you set up like you.
Ready
Major
to go.
network, right? I said, well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely set up to do whatever's necessary. He said, I want to put this on tape. I want to tell people what I just told you. And that's what we did, and I recorded it. He said, use this for your marketing employee. And I didn't, and I should have, and I will now. But podcasting became a thing, and the Rise and Grind Morning Show is the first show.
And like I say, that commitment every day.
Every day.
What have you, because I've been at this for 10 years, and definitely the approach of Detroit is different, is a little bit different, but have launched many podcasts here. Some have come from other networks and spaces too. What have you learned about podcasting? Because I got so many opinions.
I learned that
since doing this.
I just learned that it's not for everybody.
Expand on that.
Just because you got something to say and you think it's interesting, it don't make it interesting. And if you are podcasting is now a sport to me. No matter what you are in the race,
Mm.
and your positioning will come not how many listeners you have, but how many rooms your name can be mentioned without you being there.
That's deep.
And I learned it because from my mentors, they always say, Miles, I be in places and I bring up your name and they be like, I know him,
Mhm.
and or I be in places and they're talking about you and I have no idea they're talking about you until they say, okay, we're gonna work with Miles Dixon out of Detroit. You know what I mean? So I learned that from him, learned that from them. And I just also learned that when people speak of you, you know what I mean? Like, of course we hear Joe Buttons, but honestly, did we hear Joe Buttons because he had a good show? We heard Joe Buttons because he was famous before. You
I,
know what I mean?
I think I, I like where you're going with this. I would say so much is really based on like when we spoke at the Afros and Audio conference, and shout out Q Lewis
Lewis.
that invited us to be a part of that. And he's been telling me for years, like, you need to come. You was already there.
Yeah.
I'm hip. I'm in. I'm game every
Right.
year from now on.
Right.
And I think it's so much about like your relationship with who your audience is,
All day.
which really is an extension of like your audience is a dynamic of your personality. And some people that are coming to this space, I think, are chasing clickbaiting and
Yeah,
what they
all
think
day.
other people should talk about, whether it be like right now, I guess Travis Hunter girlfriend or whatever, like, or fiance, like, and not don't have a sincere, like you say, take or perspective
Right.
beyond what's so flat.
Yeah.
And if your audience ain't really necessarily where it's at, if you just sit in the tuck of what you supposed to do and where you at, it can get so rich and so fulfilling. As I've pulled so many opportunities like connected to Detroit is different, not necessarily always through Detroit is different, as you speak of like naming rooms that you're not in.
Yeah.
Seen as an asset of connection. And my goal, even with this one, and this is so different because I think this is like, I'm more excited about some of your hip hop story than even you are. But, you know, my goal is always to give people an experience when I interview them where they get some questions and they get something they usually don't get. And that's why when people always say, you know, you want my bio or what I'm working on, I don't know if Detroit is different is the best venue for that, because I want to get into your Detroit story. What's been your motivation?
Right.
What that connection is. I mean, it's gonna sit in my mind now. Next time I hear Teddy Pendergrass and that Philly sound, I'm gonna be thinking, your mom was running with him back in the day.
Most definitely. And people gotta remember, so Teddy Pendergrass also was a drummer first. You know what I mean? So he wasn't really being heard until somebody couldn't make it that day.
Yeah, I mean, he ends up being a lead in Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes afterwards. And I'm pretty sure, like, on one end, Harold Melvin was happy because he made a lot of money. But then on another end, he was
Hold
like, oh, man.
Damn, Teddy done took my spot.
Exactly. You know?
But yeah, but when it comes down to Detroit in the podcast world, I just tell people, like, they come to me all the time, come in, come out, come in, come out.
And that's the number one thing, because most podcasts don't make it to 7 episodes.
Man. But that's what I told people when we was at Afros and Audio, was like, we on 1346 right now, right?
And that right there is such a commitment, because it gets to a point where it's over and beyond.
Yeah.
And at that 1346, I'm sure it's been people that's like, oh, I'm gonna be here with you every day, every day, every day.
Man.
And they fall off.
Man.
You know.
Shout out to I probably don't have no original member to the Rise and Grind Morning Show.
But it's like that because the commitment it takes, and it's not necessarily hard. Sometimes it can be creative differences and hard feelings.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's just that commitment of what people are thinking they're gonna get from this. I don't know what they think they're gonna get from this. And then also when you start really speaking, shout out to Josh. Me and Josh used to know on Josh Adams show. Like, you start getting on this platform, you're gonna explore parts of yourself.
Yeah.
You're gonna explore parts of the people you connected to. You're gonna tell some stories from back in the day, which is gonna have some people, you know, I don't want to say like walk up on you like, you know what I'm saying, let's squad up, but you definitely have to have some authenticity of what you bring to this microphone, because people will
try to
be
check
speaking about it.
Yeah. And another thing, like, anything that I speak of, I just always backed up anyway. And I've never been one. That's what people say. I'm not afraid to say what I say, because I tell the truth. As long as you tell the truth, and people start looking back like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So I know somebody coming about this Al Nuke thing. Al Nuke was like, man, what was that? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's another artist who I
Another
prefer.
another legend in Detroit. Shout out
Definitely.
Al. I don't like all of like when we think of other things in podcasting and
Yeah.
everything. And this is no shade to Dogface either, but like it's a lot of like that's the other thing I think that happens in this space of content creation. It's a lot of eyes that can get on you for like
Wrong,
stirring up
the wrong reasons.
some drama.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not looking necessarily to put the stuff I'm working on in that space.
Right. No, and I don't blame you. And you shouldn't. That's clickbaiting to me.
Yeah, that's what I think
But
too.
shout out to Dogface. Dogface my dog. He already know it. So
Mhm.
but people gonna say something about what I said, but I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
And if they want me to, I'll be bringing Billy T. Billy T, what happened?
So
He'll tell the truth.
so you've provided platform for so many shows and so many people and so many different guests because this is the other thing about podcasting. People are usually welcoming some of the people they admire most or most that they look up to most
Yeah.
into the studio. So now you through others are connecting to some different type of energy just associated with it.
Yeah.
What have you witnessed in building community like that and seeing it grow?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I consider myself a good team builder.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had one of the best teams ever. Melissa Talbot, Nathan Talbot, myself, Carl King, a few other people that I can't probably remember like off the hook right now. But I built one of the strongest teams that we could do anything from
Mm-hmm.
movies to film to TV, television, whatever. But what I witnessed is that Detroit is different.
Yeah.
We the stronger we get, the weaker minded we get.
Break that down a little bit.
The more powerful we become as a whole, it's so easy to break us apart.
That's interesting.
It's easy to break us apart. Like for example, the Detroit Lions is going through what they're doing, right? They're doing great, right? But so many people is trying to pick apart now. They want the offense coordinator. They want the defense coordinator. They want the head coach. You know what I mean? They want some of the players, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's up for the players to deny or whatever, you know, and it's up to the coaches. And it's, so far, I heard out of the 5 people they went after, all 5 people denied it. Like, nah, we good. Let us be great. You feel me? In Detroit, because it's different. You will see one person like, okay, you know what I mean?
And I figured that's what you were sharing. And it's so tough because I think of even with Detroit is different. The growth of seeing some folks that have started taking bigger opportunities because I know where the pay is or what other considerations I could give and just where things go in scope. And I'm looking at it like, man, we're 1 or 2 more years of this and you'll be surprised opportunities that'll be available. With that, I'm just also understanding of, people pivot and do different things at different times. And I could definitely tell you this about just the momentum that I learned from music that goes into content creation. And I think it's even more fold. And I've learned it myself because I've taken episodes off. The number one way to stop momentum in this world is to stop doing it.
That's it.
So like when you think, okay, I'm gonna just take 2 weeks off. People have built like me. People have built. If you don't have like a seasonal show where I already know, okay, this is 12 episodes and that's cool till the season 2 come. What ends up happening is now I swap your podcast out for something new. Like I listen to like a lot of people and they're gonna be coming here soon. Like, I mean, I just like this music so much as a kid. Mason Cameron show. They're like, oh, we on season break. So now that they're on season break, when I would work out and do everything else I would do and listen to a podcast, now I'm gonna discover something else.
Yeah.
And now as I discover something else, I may or may not come back to their podcast. I mean, like this is the reality of it.
But you make sense of it. But if people just take them, it's certain things you just don't do.
Yeah.
You don't take out a tradition unless you're willing to fulfill it all the way through. Television do it, but even when they're on season break, they still show reruns.
Yeah.
Right? They'll never give up their slot, right? I think the Jeffersons is probably the most moved slot ever in
TV history.
Sitcom history. And the problem is we don't want to get the we don't want to reap the we don't want to work as hard to reap the benefits.
Yeah.
It's like working out. The first 2-3 weeks, I'm tired. You don't see that much. And you're like, man, forget that. I'm going back to my chips and my meat and stuff. And the reality is, you have to be broken down to be built up.
I was just talking about you got to destroy and rebuild, and even similar to like what's coming up with Rise and Grind. Christmas is coming up real soon. We recording this on Christmas Eve, so it's going to be an arc of people that's like, nah, I'm gonna sit this one out. But then it's a reality of if you do that Christmas show, it may strike where that's when most people listen, and they're thinking, damn, I should have been on the Christmas show.
And you know what? I might just pull up for live Christmas show. We had one gonna go, but I might call people like, hey, y'all want to do a Christmas show?
Yeah.
See who want to come. That's cool. But
and it'll be that one person that usually wouldn't come, and it'll be a moment that is, and I'm not saying it will, but I'm just telling you, it's happened like that
all day.
So many times, even in music. Like some of my biggest opportunities actually came at shows with very few people.
Man.
Like meaning like it's like 5 or 6 people, but that 5 or 6 is one person in there that 2 things happen. Every time I've done shows like that, if I really kick ass when I focus, like, no, I'm going to give a great show for these 7 people. Those 7 people are my fans for forever. They like, yo, that guy
listen,
I'm there. He gave a fuck when nobody else I thought should.
Right.
That's one thing. And then the second thing is sometimes from that, those people open up their phone contacts like, look, man, I can't just have you performing for 7 people. I got to call my homie that's in New York.
There you go.
No. Hey.
There you go.
Opportunity. It's happened like that.
And it will always be, especially if it's God behind it. You know what I mean? I don't want to bring religion into this because God is not religion. Just God is just my God, or your creator, however you want to put it. But whenever you do things that God gifted you of, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. I mean, I tell people, I shut down the whole print industry.
Wow.
No. I shut it down by my damn self, and people was upset. I started doing the 5,000 flyers for 150. When I did that, the print industry was pissed.
Yeah,
they was like, no. I was like, shut up. I try to get all us to work together. Shut up. Y'all ain't want to work together. I tear this bitch down. Boom, and we can rebuild it back together. If that's what y'all want to do, because evidently I came up with a hell of a plan, and everybody was like, well, that's what you want to do. It's not what I want to do. This is how our survival will be forever if we just work together. We all are separate buildings. We all got separate phone bills. We all paying separate receptionists. All this stuff is just separate. And then when I did the math, we had spent $3 million a year, and if we did what we did, we was only going to spend $800,000 a year. And they didn't want to do it. So I was like, okay, I'll tear this bitch down by myself.
So in that same scope, what do you see as we get to a close? What do you see moving forward just in podcasting, for you in podcasting? What do you see for the future?
We're moving to another plateau where you're going to see we dealing with, this is pod life. You know what I mean? So our group is being about pod life. Like we going to have different merch. We definitely going to have different classes. We got a masterclass with Mason coming January 20th.
Cool.
So people can learn how to interview.
Yeah.
Ask the right questions or learn the not factor. Learn what not to do and learn what not to say.
Yeah.
Because certain things, like you said, can provoke the wrong thing. It can trigger people.
Yeah.
And triggering ain't always good.
And also with triggering, when we think about podcasts and the success of them, I think some of this 2024 been a hell of a year, and some of the highlights of this year actually lie so much in podcast world. When we think of the Cat Williams Club Shay Shay interviews, it's a moment in time now that stands in people's memory. Now, with that moment in time, like I often tell people, it reset the table for so many things with the Club Shay Shay brand, which I watched the interview and I've watched other interviews, but now I feel like sometimes when you get that hell of an opportunity, it can reset the table almost like an artist with a hit song.
Yes.
That now it's like, okay, we need you to do, all right, Sir Mix-a-Lot, we need another Baby Got Back.
Exactly.
As opposed to like, can I be an artist anymore?
Exactly. That's why I think, they just started announcing that Cat Williams is returning. You feel me? On the same day that he did that one.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a big draw? Yes. Do I think it's going to be a great upset? Yes. And it's only because once if you ever heard someone sing a cappella, right? This is why a cappella groups don't do good. You know what I mean? It's nothing else to expect to after they sung a song with no music,
Yeah.
no different tones in the air. It's just hard to get people to come through the door.
Yeah, I think it'll be certain people that watch again, but to
Yeah.
chase that moment and catch it again,
No.
that's lightning in a bottle, and you almost have to look past it. And I think that's the cool thing about podcasting. If you're really connected to, I like that term, and I'm gonna have to get one of those hoodies, Pod Life, because Lord knows I'm in the mix of it.
I mean, the life of a podcaster is dope when you be in a podcaster.
And when you love it,
And when you love it,
you
right.
you gotta really like talking to people. You gotta have a real curiosity for this stuff,
Yeah,
and you gotta also have a joy to the number one thing that I think that I could tell anybody that wants to start a podcast, and I always tell them this: listen to your podcast
right.
yourself, appreciate it.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people do this but never listen to themselves because they say, I don't like listening to myself.
Man, listen. Okay, it's impossible for me to listen to everything all the time, but I listen to at least 3 to 4 of my podcasts a week, right?
And that's that, but that helps you. That's really being in the gym, learning, okay, because every time you go, imagine what the person doing. They turning off and they going to someplace else.
Exactly. And thanks to you and a couple other people I know, I'm going through speech therapy, right, for clarity. And when I speak, the older I get, the more groggier I get in my voice.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to speak clearer. So people don't say, "What do you say?" You know what I mean? Because there's been a couple shows like, "What the hell did I just say?"
Yeah. So if he's saying that, and this is why you got to listen, imagine what the audience is thinking.
Exactly. One thing I did learn too about podcasting is by saying it's not built for everybody.
It's not.
It's not, and it's not built for everybody for quite a few reasons. But most importantly, everybody treat it like it's a rant session. Right? I got a show called Girth that's on podcast. It come on Tuesday. It's one of the most ignorant shows, but I love it because
it is.
It makes people think like my homegirl called me like, "What made you say that?" I said because I could, and you listened and you heard me, but you asked me what. She's like, "Are men really like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, we really think like that." I said, "You might don't think we do because you have a husband." But trust me, all your friends that be calling you, talking about they man tripping, blah, blah. I said, that is why. And they be like, y'all act like y'all women bashing. I said, no, it's not about women bashing. We want y'all to listen and hear what we saying because we are telling you what we don't want and y'all still doing it. We don't like long fake hair. We don't like these lashes. We don't like these bullcrap nails. But y'all still wear it and y'all wearing it for y'all. Y'all not wearing it for us.
Yeah. So takes like that in podcast world, that's where it exists. I would say that, and that, yeah, that show is hilarious. And then you got to also know the arc of what, when, and how you bring in stuff. So like a show like that, it's tongue in cheek. It's for humor. It's for comedy.
Definitely.
But then like Rise and Grind it was some serious episodes.
Definitely some serious.
But it depends on who the topic is.
Yeah.
Dr. Sabrina, shout out to Dr. Sabrina's show, is always delivering something that's more impactful, but also it has its arcs where it's gonna have the humor and the character too. It's about how you frame everything.
Like what Girth originally and still is today, is where men could be vulnerable because something that me, Q, and Don had in common. Well, all of our mothers passed away. All our mothers passed away from cancer. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's a different kinship when it was about men's health. We bring this year is going to be not totally different, but it's going to be remarkably different in the sense of direction.
And I like that.
Yeah, it's remarkably different. And I'm dropping some new books. I'm dropping 6 books next year.
And another person, stay grinding. And also the Pod Awards, man. Shout out to that, bro.
The Oscars, yes.
Man, that is creative and amazing, man.
Thank you, brother. This year is gonna be October 3rd. Same place. We have some new things coming up. We taking over the whole floor.
I like it.
It's gonna be broadcasted live.
I like it.
So we might need.
I'm gonna be in effect.
We need to talk to you.
I'm gonna be in effect because October usually that's running concurrent when we do the Detroit is different thing. But now that I know that's happening, it's almost like all October we gonna be rocking because it's gonna be afros and audios that
most definitely
and natural hair show the whole.
Did you hear about our partnership with Afros and Audio?
I did not. What's going on?
Pod Talk Magazine and Afros and Audio is partnering together with the distribution of Pod Talk Magazine. Talib is on the cover of the January issue. All things podcast will be in Pod Talk Magazine.
I love it.
So let me know what y'all podteria look like. Shoot me out a picture. Y'all might make the magazine, you might not, but hey, it's always more magazines, and we're gonna be in full effect with Pod Talk. And the Pod Talk podcast is on every Thursday too on podcasting. So
I love it.
Thank you, brother.
So now, classic Detroit is different question. Your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
1990 Escort, red. It was a beautifully red car in 1998.
Okay, all right. And where's the first place you went when you got it?
Gas station.
There you go. hey, that's
the gas station.
You ain't front. So you're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What you playing?
Summertime.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm Freaky by Exchange.
Okay, I like it. All right, and now we close out. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
After a Detroiter. Andrew Wallace. That's my mentor. Andrew Wallace, he's one of the greatest people I've met in my life. When I did Switchplay TV, one of my partners backed out. He heard me cussing out, heard me hang up the phone.
Wow.
He said, "What do it take for you to get your own equipment?" I said, "Money. I don't have $36,000 right now." He called me back. That was on a Monday. He called me back on a Wednesday. Said some of your stuff would be there Friday, and the rest of it would be there the following Monday, Tuesday.
Wow.
He paid for everything. He said, "How much money do you have on you?" I said, $1,500 right now, cash. Can I send somebody over there to get that? I said, "Yeah." And he didn't become my mentor because of that, but because he said, "Miles, I want to be a part of your success." I believed him, and he's been there. He's still here, and I had to name it after Andrew Wallace.
How did you? So I want to share. I gotta ask this part, even though this is the last question. But you've been in positions like that with record deals and things like that. How, especially as black men in the hip hop generation, how do you even grow a level of understanding to trust something like that and build in relationship of something like that and not look at it like, okay, the classic, which sometimes you got to look at it like Master P. If I'm getting offered $1 million, that means they got 10 million from it. But how do you even grow and know? Where do you have the discernment to make the decision that, like, nah, Mr. Wallace is someone that is supportive of this movement and not exploitive of the movement?
Because he has children of his own, and they are boys. I've seen his position on how he treat them, and most importantly, I've seen his position on how he treat his wife. I'm very observant, and I listen very well. And again, I'm a team builder. And in building the team, those same things you have to do with the awareness, you have to do also on being submissive and being a servant. I am a servant first. I'm a father second, because I listen to God all the time. Again, my mother died in my arms when I was 16.
Yeah.
So I don't, things that most people worry about, I never did. And it wasn't because I was being naive. It was simply because I know who I am and I know whose I am. And when you look at things like that, you're going to win. You know what I mean? Like Kobe. When they talked about Kobe, they just said, he was just different. He was just different. But Kobe also was raised by his mother and father. You know what I mean? And a lot of people who is great, who is great, you will see their upbringing, you know what I mean, and their cherished moments of being a servant. Kobe didn't have to. He didn't play his first year of the season. You know what I mean? All the way through. They trained him.
Yeah.
That means he's coachable.
Yeah.
And when you're coachable, you learn how to be a servant.
Mm.
And if you're not a servant and you always want to be the server, yeah, it's just you have to learn how to balance that out with yourself.
That's deep.
Yeah,
And a heck of a message.
Thank
you
you
so much.
No,
Thank you so
for
much.
inviting me. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Detroit is different. I love it. I love the space. I love what you provide for people. So
Respect.
just keep it going. And hey, we not in a race. We just working at our pace. You know what I'm saying?
All day. And then also, these are some Legos that's gonna stack. We're gonna
Most
definitely be
definitely.
working together a whole lot more.
Let's do it.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.